Welcome everybody, thanks for joining today's webinar. Today we are joined by Chris Grimes and Matthew Tellem from Matrix to have a discussion on how to overcome rapid response challenges of Brexit and the pandemic with temporary staff. In this session, Matrix will explore how they have supported a number of clients rapidly to respond to Brexit challenges with border control facilities and pandemic challenges such as track and trace. Over to you, Chris and Matthew, all yours.
Thanks, Ian. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today to obviously, as Ian's mentioned, to talk through some interesting sort of challenges that we've faced over the last year. I'm sure everyone on the call today will be sort of have their own sort of set of challenges that they've had to sort of face over the last year. It's been a tough year. On the call myself today, as Ian said, is Matthew Tellem, who's our business manager for Wales and the Southwest. So Matthew will be giving a view of sort of some things we've been doing at Cardiff Council, City of Cardiff Council, and shortly to join us, hopefully, he's been held up on another meeting, is Kwabena Danquah.
Here now, Chris, sorry.
Hi, Kwab. Good, great.
Hi, guys. Hi, all.
So Kwab will talk through sort of really kind of the sort of some examples of what we've done around Brexit and some challenges we faced around Brexit, around sort of border control facility, particularly Ashford Borough Council. So Kwab's one of our business managers also. Just a brief overview really about Matrix for those who do know us, who don't know us, who think they know us but maybe don't. We have been going now for sort of a good 15 odd years. We're one of the leading NutriVend managed service providers in public sector. So we're on the MStar-free framework. We've got a number of customers on the MStar-free framework, and we're also under sort of the London collaboration. We were selected as the lead NutriVendor by the London Collab, which is an exercise run by MStar-free as well. So our bread and butter, I guess, if you like, has always been temporary labour, temporary staff. And sometimes seen as a bit of a NutriVend, can sometimes traditionally been seen as sort of one size fits all sort of approach. Whereas hopefully what we're going to discuss today is really kind of dispel a few of those myths in terms of how our approach is really flexible in terms of supporting customers, not just for temporary labour, which Matthew will talk about, but also around sort of the permanent recruitment, which we've done a big piece of work around sort of the Ashford Borough Council. So here's some likely looking mug shots we've got in front of us here now. So obviously we've gone through who's going to be on the call. I guess what is rapid response for us? Rapid response is, as I say, a bit about delivering a flexible solution for yourselves, also whilst ensuring that we're striving to deliver our key goals, what our customers often want us to deliver. So that's about maintaining control and visibility on spend, making sure spending isn't going out of control in times of emergency like Brexit or the pandemic, and making sure that there's a significant amount of quality in terms of applicants and candidates that's coming through. So that's enough from me. I'm just here to introduce the session and wrap up at the end. So Kwab will now go through and talk around sort of the border control facility at Ashford Borough Council. So over to you, Kwab.
Hi, all. I don't know if you can see me or not. Introduce yourself. I'm the National Business Manager for Matrix. I've been working with Ashford Borough Council just before Christmas. They did a direct call off with us for us to, I suppose, assist them with a number of permanent hires. It did start off where they were looking at a number of temporary and fixed term and permanent hires, but as the recruitment process transpired, it became predominantly driven by permanent hires. We had quite a quick turnaround in terms of getting the supply chain set up so that they could actively work on those particular placements. They had a PSL that was already in place that kind of deals with their temporary recruitment needs, but they didn't feel that it was a robust PSL that could help them achieve their goals in terms of turning these particular vacancies around. Obviously, the appeal around the neutral vend aspect of it would open up a healthy competition for them. It'll enable us to use their current PSL, but also for us to add some of our trusted suppliers that worked well with us from a range of different job specialisms that could really hit the ground running and give us the type of candidates that we're required to meet the skill sets for the new locations that were being put together for under Ashford Borough's council's name. So it was 2 locations that they were looking to recruit into. Over the course of the 4 months, we helped them successfully place 40 high quality staffed workers in 5 different specialisms, all within the salary brackets that were advertised for our portal and direct with the supply chain. They're really helpful in terms of that engagement with key stakeholders and the supply chain, getting the right type of information to successfully source the right type of candidates. And they were so ahead of the curve. Other boroughs were probably looking at them as an example to see how well they were doing in terms of fulfilling those particular vacancies. We also were able to use our CDL offering, which also allowed them to direct candidates to us and get those particular workers through our process at a more cheaper rate in essence. But it was a really successful piece of work that we've done with them so far. There is currently another exercise ongoing at the minute to bring in more hires, which will, I believe, they will start in at the start of October with some training that will be going on in September. So that process is going well. There's some really good CVs that have come in so far for the next phase of recruitment. So it's been a real success story for us and for them, and the collaboration with them was fantastic. They were willing to listen to us. We listened to them, and fingers crossed, this next set of hires is just going to be as successful as the first set of hires.
I think one of the key challenges that we faced way back in December when they first got in touch with us was almost a sense of urgency that they had, that they were given this set of work, I think by DEFRA, to sort of manage this newly created inland port. And if I think it's quite easy to forget about Brexit and all of the other stuff that we've had to deal with in the last year. But if you cast your minds back to December, there was still talk of maybe having deals or maybe having different sort of arrangements. It was left very late in the day to understand sort of where we are now, where and what sort of measures as authorities and also as a sort of as in terms of UK government we need to put in place. So there was certainly a feeling from Ashford that there was a lot of all eyes were on them in terms of ensuring that they had the relevant sort of people and as Quad probably played down a little bit, it was really high skilled, hard to fill type of roles as well, and a real success I think from it has been sort of having that. The technology does an awful lot of good for us. It takes away a lot of the legwork and a lot of the sort of manual processes that are involved. But Quab, again, playing as the humble person he is, playing down the role that he's played in helping this process. And it's kind of similar to our sort of specialist process within sort of temporary labour, in the sense of we recognise that certain skill sets, certain requirements are different and have a need for a different approach. So it's kind of almost project managing that sort of requirement to sort of throughout sort of and sort of taking a bit of a lead there to sort of help the agencies, help hiring managers, and just manage everyone's expectations. Would you say that there was any reluctance from agencies to kind of partake, or were they all sort of quite welcoming to sort of the opportunity?
I think a lot of the suppliers were, I think they've always seen us as a temporary recruitment solution for a number of local authorities and public sector clients. So to see and have an opportunity around the permanent space, it was quite welcoming. We had quite a good uptake, and it was about really trying to figure out which are the best type of suppliers that were going to help source the right type of candidates, and looking back to see what we've done with some of those particular agencies over the course of our relationships with them. We whittled it down to a number of suppliers that felt that could really get the type of candidates that were required and meet the skill set and the specialisms of those particular roles. And the success of that is down to the relationships that we have with the suppliers, and really understanding what they're about and how they work, and the processes that they go through to bring on board the right type of candidates, but also understanding the client's needs and making sure that that's really filtered through to the supply chain. So the uptake was fantastic, and it was about us really using our knowledge and our sense of what good suppliers could really deliver on this particular project.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I guess that would be a bit of a challenge, because it's almost back when the sort of pandemic was really kind of quite high as well. So agencies almost scratching around for work and trying to find work. So it's almost trying to whittle down to say, well, I appreciate we've got all of these agencies want to sign up, but who's actually going to be able to deliver against the requirement that we need. So that's really, really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Before we move on, and there was a question a second, so worth just noting there's a link on the slides. I will share the slides to sort of read more, and as you'd expect from a salesperson like myself, I'll follow up with sort of relevant case studies or information. And if anyone wants any more information around how we can help with similar sort of arrangements, then we're happy to discuss. There was a question about what sort of organisations Matrix work with. Obviously happy to take that now before we move on to Matt's piece. But I guess sort of I've probably missed out on the intro about who we are and what we do. Matrix currently work with about 106, 107 mainly public bodies, a couple of private sector companies thrown in the mix as well, but mainly public bodies, and they range from local authorities like Ashford and Cardiff, what we're talking about today, Blue Light. So we work with a number of police organisations. Off the top of my head, I know we've got a really good relationship with Avon and Somerset Constabulary, and a number of fire and rescue, and we also work with a number of central government bodies as well. So we recently went live with the Met Office. So we've got a broad mix of the type of organisations that we support and work with, and everyone's different. So the Avon and Somerset Police, the type of requirements that they have are very different to what a local authority has. But it's about having this flexible approach really, and ensuring that we can kind of meet people's needs and expectations. I will stop waffling, I promise. So up next, just somehow I've managed to break the PowerPoint. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. So up next, we were going to talk about track and trace, and sort of a response to COVID, really, to protect track, trace and protect at Cardiff City Council, where Cardiff had a requirement for 300 staff to deal with cases and contact tracing as a result of COVID-19. Matt, do you want to go through this and just give a brief background about our history of Cardiff Council as a customer as well?
Yeah, of course. So fortunately, we'd worked with Cardiff coming up 5.5 years. So we've had them for quite some long time. Something I've managed personally, starting as the account manager and then developing into a business manager. For me, Cardiff have always relied heavy and wanted the relationships with local SMEs. So our task before this has started is about understanding their needs. So I would walk the high street, go and visit all the suppliers that were local, develop then to weekly meetings with the council where there's 5 main SMEs that would fill all their waste roles historically. We would then just meet up on a monthly basis, weekly basis, whatever our clients wanted us to, and just work really close with them. Now, this opportunity came around in November, but I think it was, in here we haven't really wrote about it, but it was such a quick turnaround that we had a phone call on a Thursday afternoon that they needed 100 people the next week. So fortunately for us that we've built the established supply chain, we've got the suppliers' numbers, we've got the relationships. For me, it was quite simple. We only used 3 suppliers, the 3 local SMEs. We called them all on the Friday afternoon. And to be perfectly honest, I think we had 650 candidates wanting to start by the Tuesday. That in itself is a task for any manager because, as you can appreciate, 300 staff working from home, distributing laptops, phones, also screening questions. So what we kind of implemented on that Friday was that we trust our supply chain enough to be able to pre-interview all candidates. They would then go into a session split 30, so 10 sessions of 30, and then the manager would meet them all. I'll be perfectly honest, I believe 11 people left that first week, and out of that 300, the 289 remained in their role up until recently, where they, as everyone knows with COVID, track and trace is slowly dropping off, which is great. So it's light at the end of the tunnel for us. But it was really, really good. And I think on one of our slides, I don't know, Chris, if you put it in, but the manager who headed up the track and trace actually give us a little quote as well, just to confirm everything that I'm saying to you. You can see here that we've successfully doubled our workforce, couldn't have done it without the support of SCM's team and the agencies who work with them. And Christine Daly and myself, we had weekly calls going through it, and we're still having the weekly calls now because obviously, as everyone knows, there's potentially another variant. So we're working closely with Christine just to ensure that we've got the staff in place if she needs any more CVs. But the feedback I've had has been really great. They're really happy. We've got a few more clients in Wales, Neath Patalba, who've reached out to us recently just to ask us to assist with their needs. They won't be as high scale, but I think they wanted around 70, so there's still potential that other clients are contacting us after the good piece of work we've done at Cardiff.
Thanks, Matt. I think that's a really good example, and I think casting my mind back over the last year or so, I kind of can think of a number of examples where I've been on calls late at night talking to existing customers and also potential sort of customers we don't really have, we haven't got an existing relationship, but they needed support. So we were on sort of standby to deploy somewhere in the region of 350 nurses and care workers for one of the Nightingale hospitals that was set up across the UK. We had to obviously engage a number of agencies across the piece there to sort of support with that piece of work, and it was always one of those that we kind of didn't want it to happen, because obviously if they needed that many people, it meant that we as a country had taken a bit of a sorry turn and a bit of a challenging turn. But we were ready, and we still remain on standby. Therefore, obviously, as Matt says, if the things change in the country, the situation changes, we're there to be able to deploy really quickly. So from a rapid response perspective, our standard implementation process is 12 weeks. If outside of this sort of normal situation, or if we were to be awarded a normal contract, or the new normal, whatever is normal now, but our standard approach is a 12-week implementation to make sure we bring our processes in and make sure that the contract's set up properly. However, sort of with these sort of examples we've shared with you so far, is kind of whether it's Ashford or whether it's a Nightingale example, we were kind of ready to deploy within 2 weeks, which was a different way of working for us and a challenge for some of the teams within our business to kind of to get their head around. But in all credit to everyone involved, everyone stepped forward and really took that challenge on. Obviously trying to work for the greater good, and then just engaging with local suppliers whereby there's an example I can think of up in Lancashire, where there was a requirement for a number of care workers across in lockdown one, where they had a number of adult care facilities, and we really kind of had to think about almost a similar example to what Matthew's just shared just there in terms of doubling workforce and things like that. So we really had to think about how do we engage more suppliers, how do we engage different types of people and bring different people into the requirement. But it's been an interesting year. I'm sure we can all agree on the call today that we probably don't want to repeat it again. But hopefully it's, you know, one positive from Matrix perspective is really demonstrated the flexibility of our approach and the robustness of our sort of solution in being able to sort of help our public bodies ensure that sort of vital services are never compromised. So so hopefully that's been interesting for you guys today. If anyone wanted any more information about what we do in general, how our solution works, or any sort of further information, case studies around what we've discussed today, I'm more than happy to share that with the wider audience. Or if there's any questions now, happy to take any questions from yourself.
There's another question on the message, Chris.
As part of the framework, the temp to perm fees via ESPO, as Ian will correct me if I'm wrong. After a certain number of weeks, they're free anyway. So there's no temp to perm fees under offer access in ESPO. I think it's after 13 weeks. Ian, feel free to shoot me down if I'm wrong. And then the example we spoke about for Ashford Borough Council, the permanent that was straight permanent recruitment. So the permanent fees were all set up up front. So we set up what the percentage fee would be based on the salary cost. That included the agency's margin and obviously our cost, which came under quite significantly under sort of what the customer would have to pay if they went directly out to market themselves, and also if they went out and used another sort of framework, some other level of permanent frameworks that are out there. So we managed to save the customers some significant sums of money as well, as well as sort of supporting that.
Great, thanks guys. So that was Chris, Kwab and Matt from Matrix, a key supplier on our MSTAR framework. We'll just give it a minute or so to see if there's any further questions. Thanks again, guys. Great presentation.
Ian, I think there's another one.
There's another one there.
Yes, yes. So you absolutely you can direct towards the MSTAR free. Again, Ian, feel free to. This is your bag. This is ESPO's bag, but you can directly award us via the framework or run a mini comp, whichever you choose. Obviously, as a provider, we would welcome direct awards, but we're happy to do tenders and answer and demonstrate our approach as well.
Excellent. Just give it another 10 seconds then we'll Oh, great. Thanks again, Matrix. Great presentation. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope to see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.